Hello everyone, and welcome back to The Warrens. I am Fredrik Knudsen, and as usual, I am joined by Jabroni Mike.
Hello listeners, thanks for listening.
Today, we are going to be looking at something rather odd, an interesting piece of internet history that sort of stayed on the undercurrent of it. If you bring it up to an old forumite, they'll probably know what you mean. We are going to be talking today about the Groverhaus. Now, I have specifically kept some of the information from Mike because I want to go into this with a mission. I have a particular view of the Groverhaus, and I want to see if I can bring Mike around to my perception of it, which is very different from what I usually do. In fact, I originally was going to make this a Down the Rabbit Hole episode, but the more I looked into it, the more I realized there's not enough left for a Down the Rabbit Hole episode.
So it's like you got like a rabbit ditch at best.
Right, like an indent.
Yeah, like a rabbit indent. You could tell a rabbit was like laying there at one point.
He was thinking about it, and then he was like, nah. But actually, no, that's not even true to it, because it's more like there was a rabbit hole, and then it got filled in. We'll get to that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, you might be asking, what is the Groverhaus? Well, the Groverhaus... sorry, would you like to ask the question?
I do want to ask the question, Fred. Hey, Fred, what's the Groverhaus?
Well, the Groverhaus is named after the person who created it, who goes by or went by Grover on the Something Awful forums. He created a thread to chronicle. Now, I should mention he was an admin, not just a moderator, an admin on the site. And I believe, let me double check that actually. I'm pretty sure that this is accurate. But either way, he made a thread on Something Awful chronicling his construction of an addition onto his house. I believe it's in New England.
Hey guys, this is Mike in post-production with two quick corrections. Fred states that Grover was an admin on the Something Awful forums, when he in fact was just a moderator. And the Groverhaus is not located in New England, but in Virginia. Neither points are central to what we're discussing here, but we felt it important to include this correction. Sorry about that, and back to the podcast.
As he was posting these images and he was sharing information about his building process, people started mocking him endlessly for his ineptitude, the ugliness of the house, the dangerousness of it. Just every little thing that they could pick apart, they picked at it for. But because Grover had the authority, he removed any negative comments. And eventually, this drama, this little mini drama on the Something Awful forum spilled over, and people were making fun of Grover and his Groverhaus.
He created a little... what's her name? Barbara Streisand effect for himself, right?
Very much so. Though he already was a problem, and we will get to that. But first, let's take a look at the house itself. Now, obviously, if you cannot see the video right now, if you're just listening, we will describe them as best as possible, but we will also have the images of the house itself available to view on the screen as we are talking about it. We're going to be interfacing with this largely through an old forumite's eyes. And they created a Twitter thread to explain and show everything that happened on it. And this Twitter thread is quite important to internet history because, as I mentioned before, a lot of the discourse around the Groverhaus has been completely scrubbed off the internet because Grover had the authority to do that. So we only have secondhand accounts of it, but all the images are preserved. And oh baby, this edition looks okay at first. But then you start to look at it a little bit longer and things go off the rails quite quickly. So we can see that from the beginning, the Groverhaus was planned pretty much exactly as it was. If I scroll down, I can show you, Mike. Look at this. To help demonstrate what the addition would look like, he went into MS Paint and drew it.
Wait a minute. That's an MS Paint. You could see the literal copy and pasted windows. I love the front-facing windows that were just lazily slapped onto the side of the house over there. You see that?
Yeah,
oh,
and
man.
he admits that it isn't a great like representation of what he wanted it to be, but man, I feel like this Grover is odd in many ways. He's very lazy in some ways, but then works way harder than he needs to in others.
That's endemic to like DIY stuff, which I wanted
Yes.
to talk about at some point. But go ahead, finish easing us in here.
As he was beginning to work on this house, let me see if I can find the precise image. So, one thing that he notes in the forums is that, he tears off some of the old house, and then he needs to lay down a foundation. But immediately, and I mean immediately, there are problems. He is in a very specific kind of place. See, he lives in a place, and I'm not joking about the name. He lives in a place called the Great Dismal Swamp.
So this was an addition to a house that already existed. Are there any images of the house before he started doing anything to it?
I think so.
Because that would be interesting to see that, like a before and an after. Because
you can see some of it.
It was an extant house. I had a lot of misconceptions about this. He's not building a house from scratch. He's doing an add-on to a house that he bought with his wife, right?
Right. Yeah, he has a wife. His wife was pregnant. Pregonate.
Pregante.
His wife was pregnant. So he already had a kid. Yeah, here he is in this image right here.
It's a very ambitious addition. It's like a 2-story addition. It looks like it's at least doubling the size of the house.
Right.
Where it's intended to. Yeah.
And the thing that really makes this impressive is that he's doing it all on his own. Well, okay, that's an exaggeration. He hires a lot of help for this, but he decides he's going to do the bulk of the building. He's going to plan it out. He's going to make everything proper. But he's not quite at the skill level that he needs. And when I say that problems arose immediately, I mean he tried to lay down a foundation, and then he used gravel, and then he went to try to get it approved by the state, and the state said, no, you can't use gravel. What are you doing? This is... he claims to have read this book front and back to make sure that he was doing everything right, and they kept calling him out on stuff. And the bulk of the problem is just he was so out of his element. Just to sort of demonstrate some of his incompetence, he used the same vinyl siding on the addition that was used on the rest of the house. And to celebrate putting up the Groverhaus, he decided to do some nice American grilling. Problem is, he put the grill right up against the side of the house, and he melted the vinyl siding.
That he had just put on there.
Yes.
When I look at these pictures, you know what I see, man? A lot of property. A lot of property. He's got a huge front yard, a huge backyard. Okay, why did he choose to place that gas grill a foot away from the house? Probably less than a foot away from the house. When he has all that property, what motivated that decision?
This is the maddening thing about Grover, is that he has the will, but he has none of the common sense.
Yeah.
And it's amazing.
Yeah. Obviously, this is an ambitious person.
Yes.
We'll give him that. But I'm seeing a lot of gross stuff.
Oh, absolutely. It's such a weird layout as well. You might have been able to garner from some of the images, but you've got the one floor, and then you have some stairs that go up along the side to get up to a sort of loft-ish second floor. Now, I want to show you one of the most infamous images from the Groverhaus, or I should say one of the most infamous angles. And I want you to tell me the first thing that you notice that's odd about this image.
Why are the stairs so thin?
So the stairs are thin, but that's not necessarily a problem. But you're on the right track for the thing that really amazes me.
Well, he's in this image. It's not the stairs aren't finished. I could still see some cotton candy, wall candy. I could still see some of that fiberglass insulation, right? I think it is.
Yeah, but
so
think for a minute. Think for a minute. Think about where that insulation is.
It's supposed to be in walls, isn't it?
Yes. He's insulated the stairs.
Keeps your feet warm. That's fine. His feet are cold. What if he doesn't have socks on? He'll have warm stairs. I love how the tweet that this is embedded into, it says, "Merry Christmas, kids." There's a window positioned right at the bottom of the stairs that is the perfect height for a child to fall out of. So like, imagine, this is what they're going for, right? It's Christmas morning, and the kids are like, "Santa, Santa," and they're running down the stairs to see what's under the tree. And one of them trips and just goes headfirst immediately out that window.
Yeah.
Like, it's the perfect height for that exact scenario to play out. Mm-hmm. Amazing. And it's Christmas time. You can see the tree and the stockings hung up, too. Mm-hmm. So why they're putting up Christmas decorations in a house that's not even finished is beyond me, but okay.
They just wanted to use it. They were so excited for this edition that they could not wait.
I could see the meat of the wall, but putting up the stockings is a priority here, right? Honestly, I didn't notice that didn't even register to me. Like, why is there wall insulation in the stairs? I really didn't catch that.
It's the best part is like, it's not even exposed to the outside. Like, this is all interior. It's like it's insulating air from the air that is in the same room.
To insulate from the outside. Yeah. And it's in the stairs. It's insulation. It's insulating against itself. It's insisting upon itself.
But you're kind of getting the feeling for the Groverhaus now, I think, where it's not that it's immediately obviously terrible. It's the details that really make it awful.
Yeah, taking a look at this. I had seen a number of people point this out, but the double garage, it's not a double garage. It's
staggered.
It's two separate garages. One of them staggered outward in front. Does it go to the same room? Does it go or are those two separate garages?
Right.
Why would he not want one big garage?
This is approaching McMansion territory, where there's just additions that make no sense that are added in because they thought, hey, that might look nice. It's so obvious how not of a designer, like how much Grover is not a designer, right? He's an electrical engineer by day, he says, and he makes a decent amount of money, but boy, howdy, is he not a designer.
Yeah, idiots with money. It's an interesting thing, isn't it?
That's the thing, though, right? Is if it's functional, okay.
Where is the original house? Like, if there was already a garage, and then he said to himself, "I want a second garage." Is that what happened?
He wants to widen the garage. Now, he did smash down part of the wall, as we saw.
We just don't know. That's why I'm saying I'd like to see an original photo of like the undefiled building. Before he got his mitts into it and started just defiling it is the word, I think. Because I'm going to assume this house was relatively normal before he started fucking with it, right?
Well, we have a floor plan right here, as you can see. It's you can see where the house was. They didn't used to park. I don't think they used to have a garage. And that's what this was supposed to add.
All right, so I see that now. And I could see that amazingly, bafflingly, those two garages are actually the same room, is what it looks like.
So why are the doors staggered?
Why did he do it that way? Why didn't he just put one big garage door? Can you do that? Or better yet, even if that's not a thing, I don't know. Maybe you could put two garage doors but have them immediately next to each other. What was the decision to stagger them? And notice that the room behind it is now also staggered in turn, but only half of the room is staggered. Are you seeing that?
Yes, I am. And it's... Why? Is there an aesthetic purpose? Is Grover a secret aesthete and we just don't understand his vision?
There's some kind of like next level feng shui going on here that we just...
And this is the magic of the Groverhaus. Mm-hmm. This is why everyone wanted me to cover it on Down the Rabbit Hole, is because the longer you look at it, the uglier it gets.
Yeah, and the more confusing it becomes.
Right.
So now we have the knowledge, because all of that to the left of that wall is the addition. Meaning that entire structure that contains the two garage doors was his design. It was all him. He built that. He conceived it and he built it.
That's the really weird thing is like, think about how much extra work he made for himself adding these extra little corners.
I don't know why did he do that? What was did he go into his thought process when he was chronicling this on Something Awful? Did he talk about
anyone who criticized him got deleted?
See, like, now I'm not against people teaching themselves how to do something.
Sure, me either.
But you cannot dismiss the value of other people that have experience, right? You need to also learn how to do the things, and you need to recognize when things aren't working. It sounds like to me, because part of the value of chronicling this thing online was so you could get feedback from the internet, right? But what he did was it seems like just ignored every piece of advice or criticism and just deleted it. What was the point of him chronicling it online if he wasn't going to take that data and use it to help him?
Mike, he wanted support. He wanted people to look at this wonderful thing that he made and praise him for it.
It wasn't about wanting to be helped. It was about just basically getting his dick sucked for this awesome project that he was doing.
Right. Exactly.
That was the goal. I've misinterpreted his goal. Is the problem here.
You are assigning you're projecting your ideas onto him. Now, projection can work both ways. You can project your negative thoughts onto someone else, but you can also project your positive thoughts onto someone else. And it sounds like that's what you're doing right now, is you're projecting your positive, constructive ideas onto Grover. But that's not the way that Grover operates.
I assumed the best of him, and obviously I shouldn't have.
That's your first mistake. So we saw the stairs. This is what the stairs lead up to. There are a couple of really weird things about this. And in terms of the actual construction of the building, I want you to turn your gaze up to the recessed lighting.
Yeah. So you told me you wanted me to be like a guinea pig in this, like you wanted to like kind of, I don't know, or a rabbit, a lab rabbit or whatever.
A little bit,
yeah. You wanted to kind of like draw conclusions out of me and see if I come to the conclusions that you come to or whatever.
I've kind of been guiding you. I'm going to be honest, this is a pretty shitty, this is like a Calhoun level experiment with the Mouse Utopia experiment sort of thing, where I'm like specifically doing things to make sure you come to the right conclusions.
Well, listen, there's a fly in the ointment here. All right? I got to come clean with you. In order to like prepare for this podcast, I investigate. I Googled.
Okay.
He told me what he wanted the topic to be, guys, and then he gave me a link to this Twitter thread. So I've been looking at this stuff, and at one point, I was looking at this image, right, and I noticed those light fixtures that are in the ceiling on an angle,
right,
and the first thing, and obviously this guy is going to sit in that couch to watch the game or whatever, and those lights are going to be directly in his face.
You saw it. So
I have those light fixtures in the basement where I'm living right now, and I don't know if it's the same kind of light bulb, but they're very bright. Typically, the type of light bulb that go into that fits in those fixtures is very, very bright. And the first thing I thought of was the Star Trek episode with Captain Jean-Luc Picard. There are 4 lights, when they're trying to get him to like deny reality or whatever. Yeah. And then I'm laughing about that to myself. I made a mental note. I was like, I'm going to bring that up while we're recording this. And then I continued looking through material, and I fell onto this. They're called "What's Your Problem?" Well, there's your problem. Excuse me, which is a podcast that covered this, and I watched like a 5-minute video of their podcast, and their mind went to the same exact place. That Star Trek episode.
It seems like such an obvious problem, right?
Did he sit in the chair? Did he discover that this was going to be a problem too late, or is he not fazed by these lights in his fucking face while he's trying to watch television?
Again, this really does feel like an engineer made it, doesn't it? Like there's no question about usability or the end like
I see what you mean by that.
He's not concerned about the way that the person is going to be interacting with the space that he's creating. He's just making it. It's like, it's got a roof. How do I make the roof stable? It's got, and then, we're going to get into that. He didn't even do that well.
It's all, you're saying it's all form and no function. It was like a utilitarian approach without the, well, what happens after? What happens when you're actually using the living space?
But the worst part is, if he's an engineer, so he's supposed to be all function, but then there's no function.
There's no function either. Well,
but there's also no form.
Function in the sense that, like, you won't get rain falling on your head when you're under the roof.
Right.
Unless he fucked that up too. Are you about to tell me he fucked that up too?
As far as I'm aware, the roof does not leak, but we don't know. We simply do not know for certain.
We can't assume that it does.
We don't know the fate of the addition right now. I think that people have been keeping an eye on it, and it's still standing somehow.
So he created this upstairs loft area that he's treating like a living room type of an area, which I guess that's cool. I don't know. There's plenty of houses around here where, you know, because of just constrained spaces, they have second floor living rooms, you know, especially like townhouses. You'll see that.
Right.
So it's not that uncommon of a thing, but you don't see that in places where it's not necessary too often.
Yeah, like you were saying, he's got tons of real estate.
Yeah, dude, there's a whole nother house attached to this. Surely you could put your living room on the first floor.
I don't know. There are some cases where, like, if you have a landing and then you have to go upstairs or downstairs to get somewhere, you might have a living room on the second floor, right? Like, that's okay. But this is just for the sake of it. Like, he wasn't really thinking about modern home design. He's very clearly not a designer. Okay, you know what? This is just another example of weird shit that Grover does. The subwoofer is on top of the VCR.
Maybe you think it's... Maybe there's a reason. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt again. There's got to be some reason that he did that. Can you think of a single reason he would do that? Can you think of any utility to that whatsoever? Anything?
The only reason I can think of is that he doesn't want to bother his downstairs neighbors, but the only things underneath this living space are the cars. Who's he going to disturb? The cars?
The garage. I don't know. Maybe he thought it looked cool. And it doesn't, but maybe he thought it looked cool.
After looking at the addition, you think that Grover is considering aesthetics in any way?
Looking at the outside of the house again, you know what it looks like? It looks like, you know, those deep learning AI algorithms?
You're totally right.
This is what a deep learning AI algorithm thinks a house looks like, based on images.
Oh my God, you're right.
Based on images of houses that it's been fed.
Oh my God, you're right.
Especially the one with the two garages, the picture with the two garages. Because I don't know what the fuck I got. It's just. Then that could be said for the original MS Paint drawing too. His original blueprint, as it were. Because as you can see, the fucking staggered garage is there. Like, a lot of the things that I was seeing here, I at first assumed they were implemented as he went along in the process, where it was like, shit, I didn't think about the fact that I was going to have, I don't know, an extra couple of feet of space here, so now the garage is going to be staggered, and it's going to look bad, but, you know, I can't help it because it's too late to fix it. No!
Right.
No! He intended that from the beginning, Fred.
Yes.
What does that mean?
This was his design.
These are not like retroactive, you know, trying to salvage something that was already fucked up. All of this was a conscious choice.
Now, there's one fun little fact that I really want to share with you.
Yeah.
And in fact, I'm just going to read what he wrote. Oh, and the tie-in with the existing house. In my case, I decided it was easier just to put in a second wall, as I would have had to dick too much with the roof to try to tie straight in. The existing footer wasn't really built for a 2-story house either. This will also allow for the settling in the addition to, hopefully, be even. I ended up undercutting my foundation and pouring a new footer about a foot deeper than the old footer, which the masons blocked up with a 1-inch gap. Wasn't enough. The existing wall bowed in 1.5 inches, which ended up messing up my new walls too, which sucked. Sad face.
The sad face.
You can't tell in the finished house, but it was readily apparent when hanging the kitchen cabinets, and it still bothers me that my wall isn't perfectly plumb. So he fucked up this addition so bad that the walls are bowing in an inch and a half.
Amazing. And then there had to be kitchen cabinets put onto those walls?
Right. And so at that point, a meme started circulating among something awful about load-bearing drywall.
Yeah, in my investigations, I kept seeing that pop up, the load-bearing drywall thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, which I don't know if you don't know anything about house construction, it's just a fucking oxymoron.
Like, drywall is just made to cordon off spaces. Like, it doesn't.
You use it to put walls up. You're not like constructing beams out of drywall or whatever. You know, You're not making the frame of the house out of drywall. Did you know, Fred, that I had a real estate license? I was a New York State realtor. I was a realtor. Right?
Really?
It was a complete waste of time. I didn't sell a single house. I had the license for almost 2 years. I showed a lot of houses, though, and I did get to see a lot of really dumb shit, like a lot of illegal add-ons and just botched, DIY stuff. And it strikes me that, this stuff is hard, doing all of this shit. It requires a lot of knowledge and experience, but I so often I see instances, it almost like a whole culture around. I would imagine mostly men, men,
right?
Manly men,
right? Like the sort of DIY. I'm going to impress my wife by building a shed.
Exactly. Like, these people, they think that they could just, like, I don't know, maybe watch one YouTube video, or in the case of Grover, read one book, and then just do it because they're an expert now.
This kind of thing is really, really commonplace.
It is. I've seen a lot of it. All right. It's, in fact, Home Depot's entire business model is built around catering to these people specifically. There's a cottage industry. Not really. I'm exaggerating. But there's a cottage industry around this type of fucking thing. And what really... Sorry to rant, but what gets me...
You're fine.
Kind of like... Just
Mike, I'm going to interrupt you. I'm going to interrupt you just to say we're recording a show. Yeah. Please talk.
I will.
What do you get?
I will. What shocks me about it, what's always shocked me about it, is that we're talking about your fucking house. All right? Your actual shelter from the elements. You know what I'm saying? Like really high up there on Maslow's hierarchy of needs thing. You've seen that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
This isn't
Maslow, not Laszlo.
Laszlo. Same shit. Hey, listen, you figured out what I meant. That's the important part, right?
Laszlo's hierarchy of, these might be nices.
Yeah. Laszlo. Maslow's underappreciated, lesser-known cousin, Laszlo. But what I'm saying is, there are a lot of things that you can... Like, this isn't, a knitting project or, like, learning how to play guitar or something like that. Okay? The roof doesn't cave in on your fucking family if you play the wrong chord. You know what I'm saying? If you're teaching yourself how to play guitar.
Now, this guy, I should say that Grover professes, he says, I'm an engineer many, many times. And he says he's got all of this worked out and everything's fine.
He claims to know what he's doing.
That's the thing, is we can't... He was a military contractor. And so but we don't really know what kind.
Well, here's the thing about it, dude. When you're talking about a house, right? And I'm related to people who have the family businesses and things like that, or work for other businesses involved in like renovations and contracting and home improvements and stuff like that. So I know a little bit of what I'm talking about, just peripherally. Right?
Sure.
These people will attempt all of these things while having, no background in like architecture, plumbing, electricity, HVAC, right? Mm-hmm. If you're a specialist in one of those things, then you're qualified to work in that thing. He's saying he was an electrician primarily, right? In the end of the day, he was
not an electrician, an electrical engineer.
An electrical engineer. Yeah. I guess those are two different things.
Yeah, those are distinct.
But there, you see, he's building essentially he's building a house. Like this addition, all right, there's no kitchen in it, right? We can assume there's no kitchen in it. Not in the addition.
I think there might be, actually. Because he built his, that was a really important part of this, is there was a kitchen.
He put the kitchen into the add-on.
Yes.
Okay, well then you need a plumber for that. You see what I'm saying? Like,
we haven't gotten to the plumbing problems.
There's so many variables that go into this shit, is what I'm trying to say. Like, if you fuck up one aspect of it, like there's mold. If you fuck this aspect of it up, there's a fire. You fuck this up, you could carbon monoxide poisoning, kill your whole family. The best case scenario in this is that the finished product just looks like shit and is actually safely habitable.
Now, you know what? We actually have the word of God here. Someone asked him, how are you building this? And he wrote, mostly intuition, I guess. None of this stuff is rocket science, and normal people do it all the time.
Oh my
Just
God.
Usually not so much altogether. I have a solid engineering background, and between the code books and examples from the web, I was able to do most of it. You're right. You absolutely nailed it, Mike. He just went online and looked at basic tutorials and was like, yeah, I could do it. I had a few questions that I posted to DIY forums, but to be honest, it wasn't very helpful. They were mostly all, that's beyond a DIY job. You need to hire a pro. So people online...
and he said, fuck that.
Yeah.
Wow.
I love that there were people online actively advising... Like, DIY people tend to be pretty gung-ho, right? It's like, oh no, whatever, I'm just going to do it myself. Even these people, and we're talking early internet DIY people, right? Anyone who's like in an online space this early, this is 2006. Before that, because he was looking into this earlier. He's trying to figure out all of this, and even these early internet adopters who typically were very independent people were saying, you need a pro for that, dude. And Grover just did it anyway.
You know what I'm starting to think? I'm starting to think DIY is dangerous.
It depends. It 100% depends. It's like, dads, build a shed first. You'll probably be able to get your DIY-ness out with a shed.
Work on the thing that people don't live in.
Right, you put your rakes in that thing and you leave it to the spiders. Right?
Yeah.
It's out there in your backyard, leave it.
That way, if it collapses, you got some dead spiders. You know what? Could be a net positive, depending on how you feel about spiders.
Yeah, it might be a good excuse to buy a new rake.
But yeah, to just kind of use your actual house as a guinea pig to kind of cut your chops, and he's admitting that he has no idea what he's doing. It's like just criminal. I feel bad for the house. I feel bad for his family. There's kids. There's kids in the picture now. I had a feeling that when I saw some of these pictures, I knew the type of mind that was behind it. Like, yeah, the type of guy who's like, oh, yeah, I could do that. Oh, I could do that. And then in the face of people saying like, man, I don't know. That's some complicated stuff that you got to be willing to admit that you might not have the skills or the experience to be able to do that. And his response to those people was to ban them from the forum or otherwise completely ignore them.
Right.
Now, again, I'm not against people teaching themselves how to do something, but there is something to be said for, I don't know, paying any kind of attention to somebody on the outside who knows what they're talking about, giving you a warning. And again, this is your fucking house. There's not a lot of room for error here. If something goes wrong here, are you homeless? What was? Can we speculate? Maybe it was a financial reason why he didn't hire the pros. Maybe he doesn't have as much money as we thought he does. Maybe that's why, and he didn't want to admit it or something. I don't have enough money to hire professionals, so I need to do these modifications on my own.
Right.
Can we speculate on that? Is that a possibility? He was
making a ton of money. Like, he bragged about it a bit in the thread, as I recall.
He said that he wanted the renovations to cost between $80,000 and $85,000. I think he said.
You know what? Yes.
The initial post that he made that started the entire thread. Do you want to read it?
Yeah, sure. He says, my wife and I are building an 85K 2,000 square foot addition onto our house, and we're doing it completely by ourselves. Framing, sheathing, roofing, doors, windows, flooring, plumbing, electrical, house wrap, kitchen, stairs, tile, trim, everything but the concrete and the siding. And we later got lazy on the drywall, too. Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, we got lazy on it.
You can't get lazy on the drywall if it's load-bearing, buddy.
It's like he knows that all this is a mistake. Like, intuitively, he knows he shouldn't be doing this.
Do you think that there's a part of him that recognized that he should have been stopping?
The fact that that sentence is there tells me that he did. It tells me he does. He knows he's making a fucking mistake, and he's actively making it while people are trying to stop him, and he's shutting them down with his moderator privileges.
He did start by building a shed. We talked about building an addition, but all we ever did was build a 12 by 12 shed that became our lawnmower garage / storage room / wood shop / What is with him listing things out so far?
I don't know. He did it twice in this paragraph.
Like, a lot. Woefully inadequate. It's
the new addition adds a new kitchen, 2-car garage, workshop area, and 3 bedrooms, and he does it a third time. More accurately, a sewing room, a guest bedroom, and a storage room, a bathroom, and a living room.
The sewing room was because of, like, problems getting it approved. Because if he did not get the entire addition approved, he wouldn't legally be allowed to sell the house.
Yeah, I mean, this stuff is, you need permits for this shit. There's things you're not legally allowed to do to a house, depending on jurisdiction or whatever. Mm-hmm. But to be fair, scroll back up for a second to the initial post, because he's saying framing, sheathing, because the fact that he lists things like this is actually, like, it really makes you think about the scope of his dumbassery. Framing, sheathing, roofing, doors, windows, flooring, plumbing, electrical, house wrap, kitchen, stairs, tile, trim. How is there a person on this earth, an individual, who can do all those things?
Well, he says in the second post, I'm an electrical engineer by day and pretty skilled at AutoCAD, but certainly not skilled in construction, and I've never done anything remotely like this before.
Oh my God. He's fully aware of his fucking ineptitude.
Mm-hmm.
It's he's got confidence, and he's got money, and he's got no common sense. A dangerous combination.
Right. And I think that originally it was going to be much, much cheaper, and then the cost ballooned. Which is really unsurprising, right? I feel like that's the fallback. That's the problem, because a complete noob will not know what things to buy and won't buy the right things and might end up spending a little bit too much. An intermediate ends up using his money to try to make up for his lack of ability. An expert will be able to pay as little as possible to get the job done and still make something good. And this is squarely in, like, the intermediate territory, where he's way overspending to make up for his ineptitude.
Do we have a final tally on how much he spent to do this?
I think it ended up being like $85K. God, $85K for that edition.
Because it seems like he started with that estimate. He said, I want to spend 80 to 85K before he even started doing it. I guess he factored in all the costs, what he thought was going to be the costs of it. He factored them all in, and he came up with that number. Did he end up having to spend more than that? Do we know? We just don't have enough information. Like we said, guys, it's a rabbit ditch. It's not a rabbit hole. Primarily because he just couldn't take the abuse after a while and deleted everything. And does he still have an online presence at all, this guy?
And this is actually what I wanted to discuss with you. We've looked at all this stuff. Oh, yeah. One other thing that there were actually 2 other things that I wanted to explain before we really get into my thoughts, my breakdown of what I think really happened.
Okay.
So first of all, take a look at the back door and look how high up the door is.
Yep.
Like, here are the steps.
It's at least a foot off the ground.
And it ended up being like 6 inches off the ground or something.
Is that right?
I'm not a good
I'm not a good judge. I can't eyeball that. But I can't help but notice that in all of these images, the building's foundation is visible from every angle of it. You can see the foundation.
I forgot. We do have a number. I'm so sorry to interrupt you.
Okay, go ahead.
At any rate, I've got $170,000 tied up in a 3,200 square foot, 6-bedroom, 3-bath house, which I think is pretty good, D.
That's not a DIY project. There's no such thing as a $170,000 DIY project. That is not a DIY project anymore. That's a full-scale that's a full-scale construction operation at that point.
Just imagine how much faster and how much neater it would have gotten done if he just hired people to do it for like the same price.
If your DIY project requires a structural engineering degree and for you to be fluent in like 7 different kinds of trades in order for you to complete it, that's not a DIY anymore. That's not a DIY project anymore. That's something else now.
I'm looking. So of the 80K, so he spent 80K on it. He spent 80K. The house in total is 170K.
Oh.
And he believes that the addition added 100K onto the value of the house.
That's not how that works.
He actually believes that his house is now worth $100,000 more because he made that addition.
That's nuts. Now, having been a real estate agent, I could tell you that when you do improvements to a house, when you eventually sell that house, you cannot just tack on the cost of whatever you did. If you put in a swimming pool and that costs $10,000, or a deck that costs $10,000, you can't just be like, well, you can't just take the market value of that house and then add the amount that you spent to do the improvement. That does not work that way. That's not how home values are decided. That's just not even remotely close to being true. It can affect it. But you can't. It's a little bit more nuanced than that.
But you know what? It's how Grover thinks it works. And that's what really matters at the end of the day.
You know what I was thinking? You really have to pity the real estate agent who is eventually going to get this listing one day and have to try to sell this.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, that is not an envious job at this point, because this thing is a absolute fucking just abortion of a fucking house.
And this thing, like, and the worst part is it's in a swamp.
It's a hard sell to begin with, right?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I don't know who's living in swamps besides ogres.
I'm trying. Okay. So the other thing that I really wanted to mention was the plumbing. Like, there was some really bad rain, and the pipes got lifted up and flooded the yard.
I can't imagine something like that happening to this person. How?
Right? This
is an amazing image. This is just wow. The more I look at it, just oh my God. So that's some kind of clay or earth. This is the composition of the ground around this part of the country, I guess, or in this area. That is swamp.
In the Great Dismal Swamp.
The Great Dismal Swamp.
Virginia, by the way.
This is Virginia.
That's where it is.
Not New England.
I believe, yes.
Not New England at all.
It's not New England. Yeah, it's East Coast. It's Virginia.
Pipes are now that I guess were intended to be subterranean are now once again seeing the sunlight.
I think that this image might have been when he was installing them, but they definitely got lifted up.
Look at his face. Doesn't he just look so confused?
This is a man who thinks that he's got everything figured out, and it just keeps going to shit. And he can't figure out why, because he planned for all of it.
Like, he's looking at this fucking chaos, and he's like, man, but I followed that 15-minute YouTube video to the T. Take a look at the shed for a second behind him. So when I was looking at that other podcast, they had pointed out, and I feel like I wouldn't have noticed this otherwise. I want to point it out to you. That pipe that's coming out of the shed.
Right.
What is that?
What is that?
Can you fathom the function of that?
That's where that comes from. Oh,
That's where
I
what
saw
comes
an
from?
image with an emote, with like the cutest little emote of a little pipe coming out of a shed and it's smoking and it's adorable. Let me find it. I get it now.
Like the
I get it
shed
now.
is smoking, like a pipe. Like the shed.
Hold on,
smoking a pipe.
or it's like toot toot. It's really cute. Toot toot. We'll have it up on screen. If you can't see it, it's adorable. It's the shed with the pipe just sticking out of this random hole in the shed and a little party hat. There's a little note coming out of it.
I still want you to try to answer what you think the function of that pipe is, at least in his mind.
Yeah. Extra big bong. Take a fat shed rip.
That would explain a lot, wouldn't it? It brings a whole new meaning to the term like hotboxing, right? Like
How else do you manage to live in a place called the Great Dismal Swamp? Like psychologically speaking,
it's probably got to be stoned. Yeah,
like at least 85% of the time.
You got to find a way to make it less dismal somehow, right?
The other 15% is him trying to plan out the additions onto the Groverhaus.
Well, he did that on drugs too. But how else do you explain the fucking like Euclidean like sunken city of Rilliet fucking architecture that I've been exposed to here tonight? This guy, this image is just my favorite. Like he just looks so confused. Like he's so bewildered, and he's in the middle of all this shit. Just the earth is rebelling against him. It's the story of somebody who just trudges forward in the face of all opposition. Not considering that any of the ruination around them is any fault of their own, not even entertaining the possibility, probably getting angry if anybody suggests that any of this is his fault, you know? Mm-hmm. And he's just standing there like, how could this have happened? How could it have gone so wrong? You know,
and he's not putting any of the blame on himself.
Not that I've seen. I mean, maybe there's more posts from him. Maybe there's more things he's written where he acknowledges some of his mistakes. But this is just one of those things. Like it's kind of epic, and I mean epic in the sense of like Sisyphean or something. You know,
right.
like mythological, like
yes.
or like Job from the Bible. You know, where that might be how he sees himself. You know what I'm saying? That might be how he sees himself, where it's like, man, I'm trying so hard and I'm teaching myself all this new knowledge, and it's just none of it's working for some reason. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just the universe. It's the universe. The universe doesn't want me to succeed. That's it. That's who's to blame. God.
Right.
God, this is God's fault.
I want to wrap this up.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to come back. At the beginning, I said that I wanted to bring you around to my side, into my belief, and that was my goal. This is absolutely contrary to like pretty much everything else that I do, where I don't want to convince people of new things. I don't really have an agenda, but in this case, I do. And
well, at least you admit your agenda.
Yeah. Here, I'm willing to admit my agenda. I'm going to, or I should say that I am allowing myself to have an agenda. And I'm going to say to you right now, the Groverhaus is not that bad.
Not that bad in terms of in the
grand scheme of things, like all the awful things on the internet, the weird, hilarious things. Like the Groverhaus is barely worth a footnote.
In the pantheon of fuck ups, this thing is actually ranking kind of low, is what you're saying.
Right. Why is this legendary? And I have a theory as to why.
Streisand effect?
No, it's not really. It goes beyond that. Because, yes, the thread got nuked, right? Like, he just kept deleting posts that, contradicted him in any possible way. But he also had a reputation. In fact, I'm going to quote Eliza here in this thread. He said, Grover worked for some branch as a contractor, but was a mod in the Something Awful military forum for some reason. So it was a mod, not an admin. I'm sorry. I I think I got that wrong.
Okay.
But for some reason, he really wanted to be troop. So he would post these huge, extremely poorly thought out, but absolutely confident debates about U.S. military intervention. So he was so hated that the people in his own forum rose up against him to try to remove him as moderator. Here, you know what? Eliza says it best. Grover was such a dumb shit, so universally hated, members of his Circle Jerk Our Troops sub-forum eventually campaigned for his demodding.
Oh.
And you know what? Let's go ahead and read it. Let's read the post from one of these people. Grover has offended and alienated many of the military members and GIP posters. For instance, he has stated that he is entitled to the respect of a senior military officer, lieutenant colonel, as a result of his civilian position, a suggestion that is genuinely insulting to military members and demonstrates a lack of character and understanding of the very forum population he's supposed to be moderating. Grover's self-righteous vanity and apparent contempt for the military dates back to the inception of GIP. Remember, this is who he is moderating. He is not a positive representative for GIP and is not wanted. Take a look at this thread from the first month of GIP's existence. In situations where he's unable to use his authority against his detractors and people do not fear immediate retaliation, he is largely incapable of taking part in the discussion due to others' reactions to him. Still, he does not stray from targeting forum users who mock him in IRC, where he has no moderating power. This is highly inappropriate, as his authority is only relevant in GIP, and thus he should only consider posts in that subforum.
Huh.
Oh, this is from a blogspot called, this was a blogspot website called Get Rid of Grover. Whole blogspot was made specifically to remove Grover as a mod.
This was a person who believed that he knew everything, from how the United States military should conduct itself in a wartime situation, to electrical, plumbing, heating, everything that goes into every aspect of building a house. Mm-hmm. He was so convinced and so sure of himself that he didn't need any kind of education or experience to do anything or have an opinion on any of these really complicated things, that people started to resent him for it. Mm-hmm. And I think what you're getting at is a lot of the sensation around Groverhaus took place precisely because of his reputation.
Yes.
People saw the really, it seems like the house itself, the existence of the house, and all the work that he was doing was an extension of his personality and what people already fucking couldn't stand about him.
I couldn't put it any better myself.
They saw everything that he was doing and they were like, yeah, that is so totally this guy that we've been putting up with for however long. Mm-hmm. This is the personification of everything that this guy embodies. Just an arrogant fucking idiot who just thinks he knows everything, in reality has no knowledge, no experience, and does not belong here, and should not be participating even in this conversation, where he absolutely has no place being here. When they saw him chronicling this construction project, they just, they started rubbing their hands together. They were like, time to just take a big old steamy shit on this guy. And then the internet did its thing.
Mm-hmm. Because the admins would not remove him, and because he would not remove himself, something awful did what it does best. It made him infamous. And
there you go. There you have it. I see what you mean. The Groverhaus actually is not that bad.
Now, it is terrible, right? Like, let's make no excuses for it. It's terrible. It's ugly. It's barely functional. The walls are bowing in. Like, it's not good. But it's not nearly as bad as people like to joke about it. Instead, it's all of the members of this forum collectively, coming together to hate this one person and this thing which represents him so well.
It's really got to be just endemic to his personality. I hope his wife doesn't get a cavity You know, because then he'll just be like, "Oh, hon, I got to drill in the,
Oh, no.
I got to drill in the garage, and I just watched a 10-minute YouTube video about dentistry." He's sitting there fucking yanking his fucking kid's teeth out with pliers. Braces? You don't need braces. I watched a YouTube video about this. Because it's got to extend to other things. It's got to extend to other. When's he going to start a farm? Start growing his own crops? What else is he going to try to attempt in the swamp? Yeah.
No, I totally just watched this video. I know which mushrooms are poisonous.
Well, you know, at least the soil on his property will be fertilized because, you know, I guess he probably fucked up, you know, the plumbing so badly that there's just feces all over his property.
I think that literally happened.
Is that like what's in that picture?
Line,
is that
like the sewer line? I don't think that's what's in that picture. But there was mention of his sewer line, like, rising up after a really bad rainfall. And the water table rising, I believe it was.
Yeah,
is that a thing water tables do? They rise, right?
Oh, yeah, that sounds right. Let's go with that.
Hold on, you know what? Can water tables move? Can vary in different areas. Wow, excessive pumping can lower the water table. I don't know if it can be raised. I think it can.
The water table is actually a really complicated thing.
This episode has been really bad for misinformation. I called him an admin when he was a mod. What else did I say? There were a couple of other things that bothered me where I was wrong and then corrected myself much later.
Guess we got to record the whole episode over again.
GG. Yep, let's go.
It's fine. It's fine. But I was about to say that the water table is a really complicated thing, and
yes,
you should probably not claim to understand it after doing one Google search of it. You know.
But I'm just taking after my hero.
Yeah, your hero, Grover.
I thought I was going to have to do a little bit more convincing, but no. Like, you were right there. You came to pretty much the same conclusion that I did.
The house is an extension of the person.
It's really too bad that information about the Groverhaus and Grover in general is so difficult to find because the Something Awful archives you can't even browse them. Like, I think you need the specific link to the thread just to find it. It's awful. Like, it has to be an external link, and searching through the archives is an absolute nightmare.
Which is why he wanted to do the topic in this format rather than, you know, down the rabbit hole, because it would have
a little bit more chill.
Hard,
not worried about like disseminating every last bit of information that I can find or like telling the story of it because the story is so full of holes. Just no. This feels like a good home for it, and I think that it will nestle quite nicely in the Warrens.
All right, Fred. So I heard you're looking for a house. You're in luck because I'm a real estate agent.
Oh.
All right. Now I've got 2 houses in your price range. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Now the first one, gorgeous. Right. It was the site of a triple murder-suicide, and the guy ate his wife in the basement, and it's definitely haunted. It's a lovely 2-bedroom colonial.
All right.
And the other one is the Groverhaus. Yeah. So when do you want an appointment for the first one?
I'll call you back tomorrow about it.
Back. Okay.
I'm just gonna I'm gonna talk to my brother about it. But yeah, right. We'll get me in there.
All right, do let me know. I'll get you.
I feel like so here's the thing, right? That house might be haunted, but the Groverhaus itself is the haunting.
It really
look at it. Look at it. It's not that the space is haunted. It's the house itself that is the malevolent entity.
It really is.
There's no cleansing it.
You know how they say that sometimes houses look like faces?
Right.
This is like the face of this house is like after you just took a big hit of peyote and you're looking at somebody who's got like they're acting in like a David Cronenberg movie and they got all kinds of facial prosthetics on. It's got 2 mouths. The eyes are on the side of the face. That's this house's face. All right, like you've got severe encephalitis and you're looking at fucking like Rorschach images. That is this house's face.
It looks like something that a 5-year-old would make in SketchUp. You know what I mean? Like he just finds random windows like standard windows that are stock there and just throws them onto the side of the house and goes, yeah.
Yeah, I did it. Yay, cool. Now it's got windows like it's supposed to. Done. What's next?
Except Groverhaus. Grover did it in reality.
Right.
I think that this is a fantastic place to end it.
All right, let's wrap it up, Freddie.
Thank you very much, everyone,
Freddie.
for listening. This has definitely been a more meandering episode compared to the first two, but I feel like that's the proper way to approach the Groverhaus. You just wander around its halls for a little while. You follow the staggered walls.
The just inexplicably staggered walls, which is by design and not some kind of retroactive fix to something that was already a mistake. Oh my God, it doesn't make any fucking sense. But
that's
like you said, this is not that uncommon of a thing. Like,
right.
Because you said, like, look, in the grand scheme of internet fuck-ups, this is not that bad, because things like this go on all the time.
Yeah,
like,
you go
again,
into McMansion hell.
Yeah,
You'll
exactly.
find this kind of thing everywhere.
Exactly. The only reason that the Groverhaus became such a phenomenon was because of the fucking character of the human behind it. It's a good hypothesis.
Because Grover was so insufferable.
Yeah.
Something that he made that was quite mundane, inept as it was, made him infamous. That's all it took, right?
And in a contempt for professionalism.
That is a fantastic phrase, and I'm going to remember that. That is excellent.
The contempt for professionalism that has permeated every aspect of American society today is fucking is actually personified by this guy in this house.
I wonder if that's why the Groverhaus made a comeback.
Maybe.
It was a reflection
Maybe.
of people's frustration with American culture.
Science is fake, news is fake, experts are fake, everything's fucking fake. The only thing I could trust is my own intuition, which is a word that Grover himself used in one of those posts.
Mm-hmm. And also some random YouTube videos and help forums.
Professional plumber here, and I think you're making a mistake. Well, just go ahead and delete that post since I'm the moderator of the forum. What? It was like he didn't want a functioning septic tank.
Let's call it. Mike, thank you very much for coming back with me on this. This is always a blast.
Thank you for doing it with me, buddy. It was a good time.
And thank you everyone out there for listening. We'll see you next time.